Bionic Nano Edition, or at least I think that is the name of the game, because then the rules also call it Bionic Micro Edition and Bionic in a Tin. Three names that all refer to the same game, and all these three version manifestations of the game have in common is that they're all free to print and play. I love free print and play games. I can try them without having to worry about wasting money. It's great. And also like games that are easy to assemble, that do not take too much printing, and this game really meets all the requirements. On top of that, it is a game that has a strong narrative, a strong storytelling element, which is something I always like in all of my games. In fact, to be honest, this game is a hybrid between a game and a game book. In fact, it's probably more like a solitaire role-playing game / game book than a board game itself. Although there is a game system which is quite sophisticated and I like quite a bit. So it's for one player, because at the heart of the game you have this booklet here that tells you the main story, the story of the game. And it is divided in 6 smaller booklets, or in 6 chapters. They are numbered, as you can see here, in paragraphs. The paragraphs tell you the story. In the story, well, we'll not tell you anything about the story actually, so you do not have any spoilers, but it is a cyberpunk world where it's dark future sci-fi scenario, hacking into computers and doing that kind of stuff. Corporations that are taking over the world that are much more important than states, if governments still exist at all. And the story progresses in a sort of choose your own adventure style, that you can try to do different things, and depending on what you want to do, you will move to the next paragraphs or to the next scene, as they are called here. And depending on where you go, well, the story will develop in different ways. That is for the narrative structure, for the choose your own adventure element. And you move from paragraph to paragraphs until either you lose enough health that you lose the game, or you reach a dead hand and you also lose the game. But I have to say, the game is fairly easy. I was able to win the first time through. Wasn't all that challenging, but still I enjoyed the atmosphere and the story. Now, as for the game engine, there is a game engine, as I said, it's quite interesting. You have this little board here where you will place cubes to keep track of your stats. Yeah, you have plot twist ratings. Certain events in the game will raise your level of plot twistness, and that simply means that in the text there will be certain events that may be triggered depending on your value or plot twist at the time. Then you will place cubes here to indicate your rating in various abilities such as gather information, deception, hacking, athletics, and these values can be between 1 and 4. You start with 1 in all categories, and then you're given some points at the beginning that you can give to your attributes to customize your character, and that is pretty neat. You will have cards that simply represent objects that you acquire, contacts that you make. You don't start with any of these. From time to time, the text will tell you gain this or gain that, and then you will simply see what that does. Also, as you can see, I printed the game in black and white. By mistake, I wanted to print it in color, which is pretty important, because then the heart of the game mechanic really relies on these chits here, and they should be in color. So as you can see, I simply colored them manually. This is sort of blue. This should be orange, but I only had a red, and this one was supposed to go green, but it just looks that depressing grayish thingy. These tokens, they have symbols on top that are used for various game effects. They have a numerical rating here, which is used to pass tests. They have keywords that may be used in various situations, and then modifiers that you use during the test. All this sounds pretty complicated, but it really is not. Several times in the game you will need to take a test in a certain category, and the presentation of the test will look like this. You are given a stat that you need to test and a target number that ideally you're trying to match exactly. Most tests will give you 3 options: a paragraph that you go if your total result of the test is below the target number, 1 if it is above, and 1 it is exactly the target number. Target number is the ideal result. Below is an underwhelming performance. And above is usually a success, but maybe it's an overkill. Maybe you spend too many resources. Maybe there's still a negative consequence, side effect to your overzealous action. So, but how do you determine this? When you need to take one of these tests, you will place all of these cheats in an opaque container. Then when it's time to take a test, you will draw a number of them equal to your rating in that category. For example, if I have hacking of 3, then I draw 3 cheats to take that test. And I look at the numbers. Remember, in that test that I showed you, I'm trying to get a 4. I'm trying to get a 4. Now, I look at these cheats and I choose how many I want to keep. I don't have to use them all. And suppose, for example, that I decide to keep only these 2 cheats. And the total right now is 4. But between when I decide the cheats that I keep and when I actually see if I pass the test or not, I need to draw a final cheat to see if there are modifiers. And in that case, when I draw a cheat is when I look at the bottom of the cheat and I look at these 3 numbers. These it took me a while. I think they're zeros. And basically the first number applies to the first 2 tests, the second number or test in the first 2 categories, the second number to a test in this category, and the third number to a test in this other category. So you may have 0, 0, 0, which means that if you had stored the numbers to meet your target number exactly, that's exactly what you want. You may have other combinations of modifiers as you can see. So there is that twist there. Which sometimes is very good for you because the cheats that you didn't get do not allow you to get the target number exactly. So, well, there is that. If the target, and then basically after you apply the modifier, you check your modified total on the little table that you have here, and you go to a corresponding paragraph based on whether the final modified number is above, equal, or below the target number. Very simple idea. 2 more things that happen if you have a skill of 3 or 4 in a category. If you have 4, it's really neat because you get to modify the target number, so you're more likely to get the ideal result that you are seeking. If you have 3, if you have at least 3 in a category, you get not just to keep cheats, which you do in every test, but you can also store a cheat. And suppose I decide to store a cheat here because why would you store cheats? Because you like the keywords there. Say brute force. This sounds good. Sounds like it may be related to an interesting effect. I'm going to store it. And later I take another test in a category for which I have at least 3, and I say, ooh, good fortune. Who doesn't want good fortune? So you can have your pool of stored cheats simply because there may be times in the game where the test says if you have a stored cheat with that keyword, then go to the paragraph or receive certain effects or trigger certain situations. So that's why you store cheats. Another thing, if you keep or store a cheat that has the symbol here, the 2 theatrical masks here, then you increase your plot twist level by 1 on this track here. And again, all it does, it may simply trigger other effects and events. And this is the game system, which is really fun. It gives a lot of weight to how you create your character at the beginning. It's huge, it's huge. And then you can play, again, with different characters and see how it goes. But it's definitely fun to manipulate these cheats. And at the same time, the system is not overwhelming, it's not so complicated. You forget that you're playing a story with a game system, and it doesn't become like a pull cheat game about optimizing your pulls with a little bit of theme here and there. So it is a game, it's a story, it's a strong story with a fun game element that enhances the story without distracting from it. And then, you know, when you start having some of these cards, which I'm not showing to you so I don't spoil the story to you or what you may find to you, again, you have a little bit of resource management there. There are some of these cards that are like encrypted data pad, and you cannot assess what they do immediately. You have to find a safe area where you can take your time to decrypt them. fun stuff. I think that the game system and the story system really go together well. I definitely enjoyed it. It was fun. It was just fun to play the story. The scenario was convincing, the action is interesting, and try to get all of these numbers. Again, it's rare to me to find a game where the game element and the story element really go together, and this game does that. It's a great interactive fiction with very well thought out game elements imbued into it. One thing that it's a negative, it's a minus, is that the story is pretty short. I mean, it will take you probably an hour, probably less to play it. As I said, you can then try the adventure with different sets of abilities, customizing your characters, explore different areas, but it's simply pretty short. And I'm complaining you can't have it both ways. The Nano Edition, right? So what did I expect? Well, I expected this, which is great. It is fun. It's just that this is definitely a system that I enjoyed and left me wanting for more. Now, that being said, I think that there is more out there. This is Bionic Nano Edition, and I saw on Board Game Geek that there is the full Bionic, of which this is the intro set. So most likely I will print out the bigger version. I'll try that one too, because I really enjoyed this intro version, and I think it did what it's meant to, right? It's meant to give me an introduction to the system and encourage me to make the full game and try it. It really did. Even if you don't decide to upgrade and to try the full game, what you have here, if you print this game, and it's not a big investment, is a fun game, will entertain you for an evening, less than an evening most likely, but it's a fun game system and one that I think has a lot of potential, and I really look forward to see what the potential goes, what the author did with the potential in the full Bionic game.